Ontario is reporting a sharp increase in measles cases. There are now 470 cases. That's 120 more than a week ago, mostly spread among unvaccinated people. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has the latest.
Measles cases in Ontario have exploded in the past week, up by 120 to 470. Of those, 361 are confirmed, the rest considered probable cases. Since the outbreak started at the end of October, most of the cases have been in the Southwestern Public Health Unit, followed by Grand Erie. Here are the other areas that have been hit. In 85% of the cases, people were unvaccinated.
If this vaccine did not work, we would have a very different case count. Please, do not risk your health or your child's health through a measles infection.
More than 350 of the cases are in people under 20. In those hardest hit health regions, Public Health Ontario is fast-tracking when children can be vaccinated.
They're actually eligible for receipt of an early dose of the measles vaccine, so between the ages of 6 and 11 months, rather than the routine dose at 12 months. The second dose has also been accelerated.
That means instead of having to wait until a child is 4 to 6 years old, they can receive their second dose as soon as 1 month after the first dose. A new NDP MPP, who's also a family doctor, responded ahead of the party's first caucus meeting since the election.
I think it's devastating. I think we haven't seen these number of cases in a very long time. And the thing that's very tragic about it is that we know that it's going to impact children the most. And we also know that we have something to prevent this significant illness and death.
We need to hear from our Chief Medical Officer of Health. We need a commitment from the provincial government to adequate funding for our public health units so they can actually do the work that's necessary to improve education and vaccination.
Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health did release a statement last week urging people to make sure they're immunized. Health officials say they want to fight misinformation that's out there, that being infected with measles is a good way to achieve immunity. They say while most people do recover, health effects can be serious. In this outbreak, 34 people have been sent to hospital, 2 of them to the ICU. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Nurses across the province were protesting outside their hospitals today, demanding that CEOs improve nurse-to-patient ratios. Now, this comes as mediated talks for a new collective agreement continue between the union representing the nurses and the Ontario Hospital Association. As Nama Weingarten reports, protesters say understaffing has become so bad that nurses are leaving the profession and patients are bearing the repercussions.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Understaffing has got to go.
Safe staffing saves lives. That was the message as nurses rallied outside hospitals across the province on Thursday, advocating to increase Ontario's patient-to-nurse ratios, which they say are the lowest across the country.
When we already have a high patient load of maybe 4 to 5 on days and sometimes 6 to 7 on nights of the most acute patients in North America, we can't do that, care for them safely.
It becomes harder and harder to take the absolute best care of your loved ones when I'm being stretched in 10 different directions.
The rallies come just as the Ontario Nurses Association is negotiating a new collective agreement with the Ontario Hospital Association, known as the OHA.
Safe staffing is our right.
Chanting outside their local hospitals, they're asking for CEOs to pressure the OHA to implement nursing ratios in that new agreement.
The OHA is not wanting to bargain for the safe patient care. The CEOs, they have the power to tell the OHA that they are willing to support this.
The head of the Nurses Association says there's a shortage of 25,000 registered nurses in the province. And nurses say the severe understaffing is driving people out of the profession.
They're working long, hard hours, and they're finding that they're demoralized.
We're seeing nurses turn into like real estate agents because we have a lot of transferable skills. Like we'd love to be using them where we actually train to be, but like it's exhausting.
The OHA said in a statement they won't comment on the nurses' demands as they work on a new agreement that's, quote, realistic considering hospital funding realities. That's after they issued a statement to the media last month, arguing that nursing ratios won't help with the workload or patient needs, calling them rigid. Meanwhile, at Queen's Park, An NDP bill to mandate nurses to patient ratios was struck down last year.
We're going to demand a government that respects you.
Green Party leader Mike Schreiner says underfunding is at the core of the issue.
And so we need to clearly communicate with the people of this province that properly funding healthcare, properly funding nurses, having safe nurse-to-patient ratios is critical to the care that you receive.
In a statement, the Ministry of Health said the government registered a record number of new nurses for the third year in a row. Arbitration for the new collective agreement is set to begin in April, and nurses across the province have until then to convince their CEOs to plead with the OHA for them to agree to add mandatory nurse-patient ratios into that new contract. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
CBC News has learned that Canadians will be heading to the polls in a matter of weeks. On Sunday, Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to ask the Governor-General to dissolve Parliament. That means an election may be held as soon as April 28th. Ashley Burke has more.
The Prime Minister hit the ice with the Edmonton Oilers as he gets ready to hit the campaign trail. Sources say Mark Carney's game plan is to ask the Governor-General on Sunday to trigger an election.
I haven't been Prime Minister for a week yet, and you can see what we've done thus far. We can do even more with that strong and clear mandate to move forward for the country, for all Canadians.
After a year trailing far behind the Conservatives in the polls, the Liberal Party appears to have turned its political fortunes around. After Justin Trudeau resigned, Donald Trump threatened Canada, and Mark Carney took over as Prime Minister.
It's one of the most unprecedented shifts in public opinion we've seen in modern history.
If Canadians voted today, Eric Grenier says polling suggests the Liberals could win a tight race.
Maybe potentially getting a majority government that even Justin Trudeau couldn't get in the last two elections.
After losing some ground in the polls, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre in Quebec announcing pre-approved areas for industrial construction projects and defending his campaign's decision to bar journalists from traveling on his party's bus and plane during the campaign.
We will have open media across the country. Local media will have the ability to ask questions. It will be refreshing to hear from local outlets on what they have to say about their local priorities.
The decision means it could be harder for political journalists to attend press conferences in remote areas and hold Poilievre to account.
He gets defensive, he gets offended, he can't handle questions.
The NDP's leader is fighting for his political life. His party's being squeezed out of the race. Polling suggests his party's at risk of losing official party status, and he's at risk of losing his own seat.
News for everybody, we're not going anywhere. We're always going to fight for working people. We're not going anywhere.
The polls lately have shown just how dramatically and quickly public opinion can change and could continue to change during the election campaign, which we're expecting to be short. Sources say that Canadians could head to the polls on April 28th or May 5th. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Here in Ontario, we just came out of our own election. We asked the Premier what advice he would have for federal leaders after his party won yet another majority government.
I don't care who it is. I don't care about political stripes. I'll work with the NDP, the Liberals, or the Conservatives. You got to protect the people. You got to protect the people. You got to protect their businesses and the jobs and the communities. We're committing billions of dollars to protect the people. We need support from the federal government. This is a Team Canada approach. I've never seen patriotism run across our country like we've had over the last couple of months.
The Premier was touring the Spring Cottage Life show in Mississauga. He and the other premiers are expected to meet with Carney tomorrow. Police in Hamilton are investigating after more than 80 Tesla vehicles were found damaged at a car dealership today. Police say they were called to a Tesla dealership on the Hamilton Mountain. They say the damages include deep scratches and punctured tires, adding that the damaged cars were all parked outside. This is the latest in a string of similar incidents at Tesla locations in Canada and the U.S. ever since CEO Elon Musk was appointed by Trump to be head of the Department of Government Efficiency, which has been slashing government programs. A brazen home invasion in Thornhill was captured on security cameras this week. The suspects broke into a home, demanded keys to a vehicle, and then smashed through a garage door to make their escape. Greg Ross has the details.
It's shocking video. Car thieves smashed through a closed garage door at a home in Thornhill.
It's a very brazen one.
Detective Sergeant Ryan Boulay with York Regional Police says it all started just before 3 o'clock on Tuesday morning. 3 masked men dressed in black casually make their way up the driveway of a home on Arnold Avenue in Thornhill.
3 suspects forced their way into the residence. They were met by the homeowners.
The owner of the home did not want to speak to us on camera, but told us when the intruders entered her home, one of them punched her husband and demanded the keys to the vehicle. The thieves were given the keys to a Range Rover, one of 3 vehicles parked in the garage of the home. Security video inside the garage shows the frantic moments before they made their escape.
We believe that the suspects started panicking when they were within the garage. They were unable to figure out how to get the garage door open, which is ultimately the reason that we may have seen them crash through the garage door upon exiting it.
The owner of the home told us that she had locked herself in an upstairs bedroom and called 911. She said she could already hear the sirens as the thieves were making their escape. They can be seen on security video waiting for a gate at the end of the driveway to open. But when it didn't open quickly enough, they smashed through it as well.
It is absolutely scary to hear.
The home invasion has many residents in this neighborhood on high alert.
We're aghast. I mean, this is a very quiet, safe neighborhood, and it's just happening more and more and more, and none of us feel safe anymore.
It's crazy. There's been a lot of break-ins on this street. A family member of mine just down the street had their house broken into in February.
Police say the suspects abandoned the SUV a short distance away. They say they're now searching for as many as 4 suspects believed to be involved. Greg Ross, CBC News, Thornhill.
A new report reveals Ontario Provincial Police may have used controversial Israeli spyware, software so sophisticated it can infiltrate a phone without the user knowing anything has happened. The latest revelation raising troubling concerns about potential spying on citizens. Lane Harrison explains.
Researchers are raising concerns about the OPP's potential use of military-grade spyware, a controversial tool called graphite. Controversial because it was recently revealed to have been used on journalists and activists supporting migrants in Italy. It's something known as zero-click spyware.
Zero-click spyware is a term that's used to describe a spyware that has a level of sophistication that is quite unparalleled in that it allows the surveillance actor operating the spyware to covertly and remotely infiltrate a mobile device without the user of that device knowing that it's happened or even clicking any links to enable the infiltration to take place.
The Citizen Lab at the University of Toronto investigates digital espionage. It looked into Paragon Solutions, the Israeli-founded, American-owned producer of graphite. The company was co-founded by a former commander of a secretive Israeli cyber warfare unit, linked to last year's pager attacks in Lebanon. And through their work, they found Paragon may have a Canadian customer.
When examining the publicly available information associated with this IP address associated with a Canada-based customer, it essentially led us to the doorstep of an address that is described as the Ontario Provincial Police's general headquarters.
The OPP would not confirm or deny if it has graphite, saying in a statement, quote, "The OPP uses investigative tools and techniques in full compliance with the laws of Canada, including the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Releasing information about specific investigative techniques and technology could jeopardize active investigations and threaten public and officer safety."
It's not only about are the rules being followed, but are the rules up to the task in the first place? It's also about what processes are necessary for the public and democratic oversight bodies to have a voice, as they do, in deciding whether Canada wants to invest in a hack-for-hire industry that has been significantly detrimental to human rights around the world.
She says the federal government has recognized that mercenary spyware like graphite is an issue, but says it needs to strengthen its regulations. Meanwhile, in a statement, Paragon Solutions says it rigorously vets any customers it sells its products to and ensures that they are operating within a proper legal framework. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. A preliminary report on last month's dramatic Delta crash at Pearson Airport is now complete. The passenger jet had skidded on landing and flipped over on the runway. Thomas Dagler reports on what's been determined so far and the questions that remain.
In the final seconds of Delta Flight 4819, new data shows the plane hurtled toward the ground at more than 1,100 feet per minute. setting off an internal warning alarm, then this. The fiery crash igniting a cloud of jet fuel and sending the plane skidding upside down on the snowy Pearson Airport runway.
Everybody's been cooperating greatly.
Ken Webster is the Transportation Safety Board's lead investigator.
From 150 feet down, their rate of descent increased, and there was an alert or a warning from the warning system on the aircraft of a sink rate, indicating the high descent rate.
These new pictures released by the TSB show carry-on luggage that flew to the ceiling and the small roof hatch that the two pilots had to crawl through to escape.
Which the report doesn't really go into detail is the conversation that took place in the cockpit between the pilot flying and the pilot assisting. There should be a constant chatter.
The TSB's initial report confirms it was the first officer flying that Bombardier jet. She had been hired 13 months prior. The more experienced captain also sitting in the cockpit.
I think it was the negligence of the first officer who was flying the aircraft that caused the accident.
Investigators aren't laying blame and haven't yet determined a cause, though questions remain about that first officer's botched landing.
I remember telling my wife that we seem to be going fast.
Delta Airlines says it won't comment while the incident is still under investigation. The company is facing at least 9 separate lawsuits from passengers who all say they were badly hurt in the crash. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Richmond Hill, Ontario.
Former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney is being honored with a commemorative postage stamp.
3, 2, 1, on y va. Voilà, baptême de Brian Mulroney.
His family performed the unveiling in Montreal. Mulroney died February last year, just weeks before his 86th birthday. He served as the 18th Prime Minister from 1984 to 1993. Stamps recognizing former Prime Ministers is a long-standing tradition at Canada Post. March 20th was Mulroney's birthday. Spring is here, and some are starting to think about that cottage getaway. The annual Cottage Life Show is back in Mississauga this week. We went to check it out, and here's some of the highlights of this year's edition.
So it's the 30th anniversary of the Spring Cottage Life Show. This is an event that we've been running for many, many years, and we really like to think of it as like the kickoff to cottage season. So we have more than 500 exhibitors who are going to be here this weekend, everything from water toys to barbecues to patio furniture, entertaining ideas. There's really something for everybody, even if you don't own a cottage.
One of the great things about this show is the vast majority of these businesses are Canadian-based. There's so much Canadian-made stuff. There's just never an opportunity like this to get so many businesses from all over the province together right in your backyard if you live in the GTA.
And it's an attraction for people to look for Ontario wood. They have a cottage, they want to do a refinished table, they want to buy some of my bear chair kits, tables, ottomans, we've got folding chairs, we also sell the seat cushions and whatnot. 100% Canadian is what you have to do, because you're supporting everything from the logger, the trucker that brings it, the mill, all the employees, all their families. At the Bear Chair, we have up to 56 employees. We support their families. It's community. And if you don't have that, your country's toilet.
I think that there's a real unification happening with Canadians appreciating what we have here. So I expect we're going to see a lot more demand for cottage real estate, and I think we'll see a lot of interest in people gearing up for a season at the cottage. You know, we had a couple years after COVID, people were, I hadn't traveled a lot, so we lost interest a little bit in cottaging to a degree, and I think we're going to see all of that back and more.
Colette joins us now with a check on the forecast. And Colette, quite the difference from yesterday.
Yeah, that's right, Kelda. Today, instead of that nice climb of the temperatures warming through the day, we really had the decline of the temperatures. I mean, from where we were this morning, Toronto at 14 degrees as of 6 a.m. I mean, we knew this was coming. I'd mentioned the cold front would come through. We got much of the day actually pretty good, just with some of these showers, obviously. And then those winds started to change direction, and by about 5 o'clock, we were down to 8 degrees and then continued to cool from there as the winds continue to pick up through the evening hours. So here's the trough behind our cold front now moving on through, and we'll get into this cooler pocket of air. However, we'll also get into some clearing. So yes, the winds become strong, but you know, they'll ease back off tomorrow and we'll get that clearing. So the sun comes back out. The temperature will actually be the high, a few degrees above seasonal. But then as we head into Saturday, it comes down a little bit, and Sunday we fall below seasonal. So just looking ahead, after the beautiful sunshine Friday, it's overnight Friday into Saturday morning. We do get into some rain showers, and on the backside of that with cooler air, yeah, a chance for some mixing. And this is just later in the morning on Saturday. This is all happening kind of at the beginning of the day, mostly to the north of the city, but a few centimeters possible with that one, and a greater chance of that actually Sunday night into Monday, then clearing. So the second part of Saturday looking pretty good. Not to mention some of the flurries and light snow from this evening, where it's generally been dusting and kind of leaving most of the GTA alone with that one. Overnight temperatures tonight, though, yeah, we have to get used to those temperatures sliding into the negatives once again, below freezing. So tomorrow morning, -2 for Toronto, Oshawa -3, Hamilton around -1, and Barrie for you folks, we're talking about, about 4 degrees below zero. 8 degrees will be that high on Friday, and then just keeping in mind how the days are going to kind of go. So Saturday, it's early in the day and likely getting into some mixing. Then we get clearing and we'll rise to that 5 degrees. Sunday, it's a flip-flop. We start the day off with some sunshine and clearer conditions, albeit cold, -6 to start Sunday. And then it's later Sunday into Monday, we'll get that mix coming in, and there we could pick up a dusting to a few centimeters of snow. Shouldn't last for long, but you got to know about it.
Good to be prepared. Thanks so much, Colette. And that is all the time we have tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everyone.